Hey everybody, my name is Che from Lounging Guitars, and I'll be showing you how to do a basic setup on the Fender Jazzmaster using the Music Nomad Keep It Simple setup method. In the past, the Fender Jazzmaster has been pretty notorious for being hard to play, hard to set up, hard to keep in tune with its floating bridge, the Tremolo system, and all the mystery surrounding the electronics. But through the setup, I'm going to show you how to make your Jazzmaster play as well as it can, keep in tune, and be very stable. In this video, I'll go over how to measure and adjust the neck relief, the nut slot height, and the string height coming off the first fret, string height, string radius, the bridge adjustment, pickup height adjustment, and how to adjust your Jazzmaster tremolo system. And to do the setup, I'll be using these tools from Music Nomad. The first thing we'll go over is the neck relief. For that, I'm going to be using the Music Nomad gauge set. In the gauge set, you have a Music Nomad truss rod gauge. It's going to determine how much relief or how much back bow the neck has, and we'll adjust accordingly. We're going to be using the first fret capo pick. So with the capo pick, I'm going to slide it over the low E, under the A, and over the D string, and slide it all the way to the first fret so that the low E is depressed on the first fret. So after placing the first fret capo where it needs to go, I'll be using the Music Nomad truss rod gauge. So go ahead and find the electric guitar feeler gauge. It's clearly indicated here. It is the 0.006 inch or the 0.15 millimeter feeler gauge. Put the guitar in playing position, and I'll be pressing down on the 12th fret. So the low E needs to be touching the 12th fret there. I'll take the feeler gauge and I'll just slide it right underneath the 6th fret. So you want to make sure that the feeler gauge is touching the string but not pushing it up. So that feeler gauge should just touch the top of the fret and touch the bottom of the string. If you have too much space, you'll need to tighten the truss rod, and if you have not enough space, you'll need to loosen the truss rod. So it looks like this one is good. The feeler gauge is touching the bottom of the string and touching the top of the fret without pushing that low E string up. After measuring on the 6th fret, and there is no room for the feeler gauge to slide in, and it's pushing that low E up a little too much, you'll need to loosen the truss rod, or if there's too much room under the 6th fret with the feeler gauge, then you'll need to tighten the truss rod. So to do that on a Jazzmaster, you'll need to take the neck off the body and adjust the truss rod at the heel of the neck. So with the truss rod adjustment toolkit, I'll be taking out the large flathead screwdriver that's part of this. So with the large flathead from the truss rod adjustment set and the screwdriver set and adapter, I'm going to adjust the truss rod nut at the heel of the neck. If the guitar has too much back bow, I am going to adjust the neck and loosen the truss rod going counterclockwise. So lefty-loosey. And what I want to do is make slight adjustments, maybe 1/8 of a turn at a time, or at the most 1/4 turn at a time, and then you'll want to check the back bow or the relief on the neck again after that adjustment. And if there is too much relief, too much forward bow, then what you want to do is tighten that truss rod nut. We're going to go 1/8 of a turn, or at the most 1/4 turn at a time. So you may be wondering, do I need to take the strings off every time I have to adjust the truss rod because you have to take the neck off? You actually don't. There's a way to adjust the truss rod without taking the strings off or the neck completely off the body to access the truss rod nut. So what you're going to do is take a capo, place it on the first fret, and then loosen all the strings. And with the tension off the neck and the capo keeping the strings at the nut and in the tuning slots, I'm going to turn the guitar over, and with the Music Nomad screwdriver set and a Phillips head screwdriver, I'm going to loosen the neck bolts. So I don't want to take these screws completely out. I just want to loosen them so that I can slide the neck out of the neck pocket slightly. So after the screws have been loosened, I'm going to carefully pull the neck, slightly angle it up. So after loosening the neck bolts and pulling the neck slightly up off the body without completely taking it off or taking off the strings, I'm going to make the adjustment at the truss rod nut. So again, if there's too much relief, I want to tighten it turning clockwise, so going this way, and then if there's too much back bow, I want to loosen it going counterclockwise, going this way. So after making the truss rod nut adjustment, we want to put the neck securely back on the body. So what we're going to do is push it back onto the body. Make sure it's flush with the neck pocket, and then I'll tighten the bolts back up. So in this process, make sure not to over tighten the bolts, or it can strip out the wood, and that'll cause other issues that will need to be addressed. While we have the neck off of the body, I wanted to address one thing. You may hear a lot about shimming the neck on a Jazzmaster. A neck shim is needed if you have the bridge of the Jazzmaster as low as it can go, but the action is still super high, or so high it's uncomfortable to play. So that's when a neck shim comes into place. A neck shim will slightly tilt the neck back from the body. Instead of being level with the body, it will slightly tilt backwards. So if I were to exaggerate, it would do this. And then that would give you the ability to raise or lower the bridge and to have a comfortable string action. You can get these full pocket neck shims. You can either get 1/2 degree or 1 degree. 1/2 degree is usually enough to be able to tilt the neck just enough. So what you do is you get the Jazzmaster and you slide the shim right into the neck pocket. So it covers the whole neck pocket instead of a shim just a sliver right at the back. If you get one with pre-drilled neck bolt holes, it makes life a lot easier. And these neck pocket shims are great because it's not just a sliver at the back of the neck. Those slivers at the back of the neck can cause your neck to ramp up right at the end over time as the wood conforms to just a ramp at the end of the neck pocket. So these full neck pocket shims are great. And sometimes they don't fit perfectly in your neck pocket, so what you'll do is just shave a tiny bit very carefully off the back and then slide it in. And what I recommend is to get a marker that's the same color as your guitar body and color the edge of the neck pocket shim to match the body so that it's not noticeable when you put it back on. Next, I'll be checking the nut slot height on this guitar coming off of the 1st fret with the Music Nomad nut height gauge. So if you look at the gauges, they are clearly marked for what strings you'll be checking off the 1st fret. I'll be checking the nut slot height coming off of the low E and the A string. So I'll be using the 0.02 inch or the 0.50 millimeter gauge under the low E and the A string. In the playing position, I'll be placing the feeler gauge right over the 1st fret underneath the low A and E string. So there is just enough room to place the gauge right over the 1st fret under the E string without pushing it up. And then, let's see, right under the A string as well without pushing it up. So that nut slot height is great. Now we'll do the same for the D and the G string. And again, in playing position, on the D and the G string, I'm going to check nut slot height. And then I'll do the same thing for the high E and B strings with the feeler gauge. So the D string seems a little bit low coming off the nut, just slightly, but this one plays great, so I'm going to leave that slot alone. Otherwise, if it's too low and it's causing a lot of buzzing, you'll need to fill and re-slot that nut, or you may need a brand new nut altogether. So if the nut slots are too high and the strings are too high coming off the first fret, we'll need to use the Music Nomad nut file set to shave down the nut slots. These are diamond coated nut files which work great and they have a great handle to them. And so what we're going to do is loosen the string and just pull it to the side, and then we will file the nut in a downward motion. So first you want to start parallel with the string, and then at the end we want to do a small downward motion. And we want to take off little bits of material at a time, or we'll have the risk of taking off too much material where we'll need to fill that slot again and re-slot, which is a lot of work. So I would say be careful, take off a little bit, a couple strokes at a time, and check that string height at the first fret again, and repeat that process with the different gauged files going through all 6 strings. Next, with the string height gauge that comes with the Music Nomad gauge set, we'll be setting the high E and low E height at the 12th fret. So to do that, we're going to use the first fret capo again, do the same thing, over the low E, under the A, and over the D, and slide it up to the first fret. And on the string height gauge, I like to use the metric side for string height because I'm just used to seeing the 1.75 or 1.5 or 1.25 string height at the 12th fret. But the really cool thing about this gauge is that it shows you the recommended height for low action, low to medium action, medium action, medium high action, and high action. So for most people, they'll be very happy with low to medium action. So with the first fret depressed with the first fret capo, I'm going to measure at the 12th fret with the low to medium action, which would be at the low E 1.5 millimeters. So I'm going to get down to the 12th fret and measure 1.5 millimeters. That line should just come right underneath the low E string. And that's actually perfect. So same thing, we're going to do that same process with the high E string, using the first fret capo, making sure the first fret is depressed. And for the high E, it says 1.25 millimeters for the low to medium action. And that is set perfectly. So on the Jazzmaster, there's a couple ways to adjust the string height off of the bridge. There are 2 bridge posts that raise the entire bridge or lower the entire bridge, and there are individual saddle screws. And all of these are adjusted via Allen key. And first you want to set the height at the whole bridge. So the bridge posts need to be set so that the saddles aren't sticking way up in the air, but more level with the bridge. So set that, and then you want to have the saddles pointing slightly upward, but not drastically upward. Just enough so that the strings aren't touching the bridge base behind the saddle. So after setting the string height at the low E and the high E, you'll need to set the radius of the strings. And to do that, we're going to use the Music Nomad radius gauge. I know that this guitar is a vintage reissue Fender, so it's going to be a 7.25 inch radius. Other Jazzmasters, more modern ones, may have a 9.5 inch radius, and if you have a custom guitar set to 10 inch radius or 12 inch radius, those are more rare. but you're going to, with the Jazzmaster, use the 7.25 inch or the 9.5 inch radius. So the importance of setting the radius of your guitar is for the strings to match the curve of the neck. And if it doesn't match the curve of the neck, it may not feel great. Some strings are pulling more than others, so you want to match the radius of the neck for this one. So to check the radius of the strings on this guitar, we're going to place the radius gauge right off of the saddles about 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to check if the strings are touching the bottom of the radius gauge. And if you can't completely tell if the strings are touching, go ahead and lightly pluck the strings. And you'll be able to tell by the buzzing sound with the muted sound if the strings are touching. So this is set to 7.25 inch radius. If it is not set to that, then you'll need to adjust the saddles to have all the strings touching the bottom of the radius gauge. So if the radius of the strings are off and some are too high and some are too low, what you want to do is reference the E strings to start. So on the A, D, G, and B string, I'm going to lower all of the saddles. And so for this, I'm using a 1.5 millimeter Allen key attachment here for the screw set. I'm leaving the low E and high E alone. So we're going to go one string at a time, setting the radius gauge for 7.25. And what I'll do is bring each saddle individually up. And then we'll check that one. So it is touching the bottom of the radius gauge. So that one is good. Now to the G string. So I'm going to check that one. So that one needs to come up a little bit more. You want to make sure that the saddle is parallel with the base of the bridge. That one's touching the bottom of the radius gauge, so moving on to the D string. Check that one. Touching the bottom. Moving on to the A string. So all of the strings are touching the bottom of the radius gauge. So the radius has been set to 7.25 inches. Here's a quick overview of the different types of Jazzmaster bridges that you can use. This one is the vintage style bridge. These bridges rock back and forth within the Jazzmaster bridge thimbles here. So they are meant to rock back and forth. When you set these up, you'll need to center it so that you have ample back motion and forward motion with the use of the trem arm. So these move along with the strings. Another type of bridge that's very popular to Jazzmaster users is the Mustang style bridge. This one also rocks back and forth and has deeper string grooves so the strings don't pop out. That is one of the main complaints of a Jazzmaster, that the strings pop out of the threaded bridge slots and they don't stay in place. So a good way to fix that is to use a Mustang style bridge with deeper grooves. Another option, and my favorite option, is the Mastery bridge. These are fixed bridges, so they do not rock back and forth in the bridge thimbles. They are fixed and they have super deep grooves so the strings don't go anywhere. These are super solid and it's sort of a set it and forget it type of bridge. And lastly, another option is the Custom Shop RSD bridge. This one is a fixed radius bridge, so it's a 9.5 inch radius. So your neck will need to match the radius of the bridge. So during the setup process, you may need to use a tiny bit of Loctite on the bridge post screws and the saddle screws to keep them from moving around during play. Just a tiny bit will do, and make sure to use blue Loctite. Next, we'll set the pickup height, the bridge pickup first and then the neck pickup. The importance of this is if the pickups are too high, especially on the Jazzmaster having one make pots, it can sound a little bit too shrill if the pickups are a little too close to the strings. And it just gives a characteristic of just a little too much sound for the ear. So the pickup height is very important for the sound of the guitar, and also for the neck pickup. If your neck pickup is too close to the strings, the magnetic pull can pull the strings down, really messing up your intonation of the guitar. So you want to make sure the neck pickup especially is far enough away from the strings where it will not magnetically pull the strings. For the pickup height adjustment, I'll be using the Music Nomad string action gauge. I'll be depressing the low E string at the last fret and measuring from the top of the pull piece to the bottom of the low E string. I'll be measuring a distance of 3/32 from the bottom of the string to the top of the pull piece. And then for the high E, the same process. I'll be depressing the last fret on the high E, and then I'll measure 1/16 from the bottom of the high E string to the top of the pull piece. So keep in mind, this is a good starting point for pickup height. You do want to listen to your pickups as you play to see how you like the sound. So adjust accordingly. And to adjust the pickup height, you'll need to adjust the 4 screws on either side of the pickup covers. And tightening, going clockwise will lower the pickup, and going counterclockwise will raise the pickup. And the pickups are raised and lowered via a piece of foam on the bottom of the pickup. That piece of foam is literally weather stripping for a window. So you can buy 3M weather stripping if that piece of foam is worn out and you're having a hard time adjusting the height of the pickup. So for the neck pickup, we'll be adjusting the pickup height to 1/8. So let me see here. Again, depress the last fret and then measure from the top of the pull piece to the bottom of the low E, and that is 1/8. And then same thing for the high E string, except for that one, I'll measure 3/32. There we go. So these pickup heights are good. So the next part of the setup process, I'll be intonating the guitar. Intonation is when your guitar is in tune throughout the guitar neck. So when I intonate my guitar, I usually hold the guitar in playing position so that I'm not putting any stress on the neck. But for the sake of the video and to show you how to do this, I'll be doing the intonation with the guitar laying on its back. So what I'll do first on the Jazzmaster is put it on the rhythm circuit. When intonating a guitar, turning the tone down or having a dark circuit on the neck pickup is great because a lot of harmonics go into intonating a guitar, and I don't want those harmonics to come into play. So I'll either do the rhythm circuit with the tone all the way down, or I'll do the neck pickup with the tone knob all the way down here. So with that in place, I'm going to play the 12th fret harmonic of the low E string. And then I'm going to tune that to pitch. And make sure when intonating a guitar that you are using a really good strobe tuner. And then when that is in tune, I'm going to play the 12th fret. So it looks like it's slightly sharp when I fret the 12th fret versus the 12th fret harmonic. So what I want to do at that point, if the note is sharp, I will need to adjust this saddle screw and move the saddle that way. So I'm going to turn it clockwise. So again, 12th fret harmonic. Retune that, and then fretted 12th note. And so those match. So the E string is now intonated. So I'll repeat that process. I'm going to play the 12th fret harmonic of the A string. And I'll play the 12th fret fretted of the A string. So that one looks like it's sharp as well. So I'm going to move the saddle back by turning the saddle screw here clockwise. Okay. So again, 12th fret harmonic. And then the fretted 12th fret. Still sharp, so I'm going to keep adjusting that, moving the saddle back. Just a little bit more, and that should be good. So that one is intonated. So you're going to repeat that process for all of the strings. If the fretted 12th fret note is sharp, you want to move the saddle that way. And if the fretted 12th fret note is flat, you want to move the saddle this way until the harmonic 12th fret note and the fretted 12th fret note are both in tune. So the last thing we'll take a look at is the Fender Jazzmaster Tremolo or vibrato unit and how it is constructed and how it works. So right here we have the plate that mounts to the body. This plate over here holds the strings, and as the strings are pulling this way with string tension, this whole plate moves downward, compressing this spring here. And that spring tension can be adjusted by this screw. If you wanted to tighten the spring, you turn it clockwise. If you want to loosen the spring, you turn it counterclockwise. And the trem arm goes into this collet right here and is held in place by these teeth. With the Jazzmaster trem arm, don't be afraid to firmly press the trem arm in until it comes out here and it's held in place by that claw. So when you depress the trem arm, it compresses that spring via the plate and then goes back into position. If you happen to lose string tension because the string breaks, it is putting less compression on the spring here and you lose tuning across all of your strings. So if you set this up properly, where the string tension and the spring tension equals that of the trem lock being in place, so the string's pulling this way and the spring compressed just enough so that the plate sits just like that, then if a string happens to break, you lose string tension, the spring lets up a little bit, you just press down on the trem arm here, press the trem arm down, engage the lock by moving it backwards, and the rest of your strings should go back in tune. So this is a fail-safe put into place just in case of catastrophic failure of your strings. So after you're done with the setup process, just make sure that your guitar is playing great. that you're not hearing buzzing at the upper frets. You want to check all the frets here. So if everything is playing great, you are done with the setup. That is how you set up a Fender Jazzmaster using the Music Nomad Keep It Simple setup method. I hope this was informative and helpful. My name is Che from Lounging Guitars. I'll see you next time.